Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons,
And I'm Mason Rothman.
and we're back again. This time we're going to discuss 2019 trends, or at least what's coming in 2019, what we're expecting, the latest news in the last month or two related to geospatial topics of interest. Mason, what are you going to talk about this episode?
Well, that's exactly right. It's going to be it's an article from Geospatial World that was published earlier in the month here in January, and it's major geospatial spatial technology trends for 2019. And when I read through it initially, I was like, "Wow, this nails almost everything that's buzzing, or was buzzing towards the end of the year." So yeah, there's a lot of great, insightful topics on here, and I highly recommend going over to geospatialworld.net and checking it out.
Do you want to go over some of those now?
Yeah, sure. So the first one on the list is going to be miniaturization of sensors. Everybody knows about this one for the most part. That's in the geospatial or satellite world. How we're going to all these smaller nano satellites and the role that they're playing. Companies like Planet, for instance, with that have a constellation of over 300 satellites now, where they can get constant look at the almost the entire world daily. Anything to chime in on it?
No, obviously the miniaturization is, well, I guess I do have something to say. Miniaturization of sensors is definitely something that's been huge the last couple of years. You just mentioned Planet. Capella Space is mentioned in the article as well. Capella is actually focused on a lot of radar stuff. The article does mention Spire, which is actually more driven by AS or trafficking maritime traffic. Using signals. It's not an imagery satellite per se, but it's
Right, which is interesting
yeah.
because we've mostly seen with the satellites in our world, well, in our in the unclassified low world here, we see it's usually just image sensors. Now we have signal sensors, or SIGINT as it's called, coming into play now in the
So
commercial world.
yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of buzz around the company Hawkeye 360 the last couple of years, but with that, geospatial birds or imagery birds have been huge the last, for a while now. Especially with small sats the last 3 or 4 years. But I would say the next revolution is the emergence of a lot of signals based small satellites to augment what's been going on with imagery to even make it more powerful. The Internet of Things. People talk about the Internet of Things on the ground and with consumers, but starting to turn into the Internet of Things of sensors in space now too.
And you nailed it too. It's that fusion of the data coming together, right? So you get more of the Paul Harvey rest of the story of what's going on exactly on the ground or at sea, etc. You can't. You not only do you see it, but you see what signals are coming off on it, coming off of, around the area or off of exactly what you're looking at. So you get more details of what's going on. Add into that, ground layer known data sets that are already there, and it gives the more data that you have around, it just gives you a better picture, so to speak, of what is going on. And that kind of leads into the second topic, which is seamless availability of EO data. That's the second topic that's in this article. And we mentioned Planet, and that's what they mentioned in here as well with the 24/7. Oh, they're saying 200 plus satellites. I thought it was 300 for some reason. Maybe I'm wrong.
Still launching
Uh,
bunch, so it probably is going to be 300 by in no time at all. So
yeah, that's what the second article is all about. And then since we kind of covered those two, I'm going to move on to the third article, which is geospatial AI, or geo.ai, so artificial intelligence. And yesterday, Adam and I attended the Fed Geo Day down in DC. Great conference, by the way. And so a lot of the topics that were talked about there on stage and at some of the display booths were all about artificial intelligence. So, yeah, that's anything to add to that, Adam,
yeah,
about the
actually, the Fed
geospatial
Geo
AI?
Day, just to touch on that, that's actually focused on open source geospatial data, and they're trying to encourage more of that in a collaborative environment, releasing more in the open because it encourages more innovation in the community overall. So it's called Fed Geo Day because I think they're trying to more educate and bring more government people to adopt open source practices and policies and encourage that in the community as a whole. Focus on the federal government, but really that little day is focused on open source in general. So
Right, and a lot of the open source that we saw that they're trying to share and have the government more adapt is AI or machine learning data. And it was entertaining yesterday on my I did a Twitter post on it
yeah,
whenever um, one of the presenters put up the Terminator, the T800 model on the on the screen or whatever. That we have to be careful about how we do machine learning in the future, or
yeah.
else type thing. I mean, that's going to an extreme, of course. Quite an entertaining presentation, by the way. But yeah, that was one of the main focuses of almost all the panels, and it was mentioned at least by each speaker there at one point or another about the machine learning and artificial intelligence part that's coming up in the future here, and that's going on currently with a lot of the unclassified or commercial companies. They're really pushing on it, and and it's evolving quickly. I was really surprised to see how far it's come in such a short amount of time.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree there. So talk to me about the next topic, BIM.
BIM, so that's the building infrastructure management. This is interesting because so in the construction world, or BIM for the infrastructure management. That's another trend as well. But you can kind of, I mean, this one's kind of a no-brainer too. At the same time, as whenever you go to build a building or a construction site, or you're planning something out, that you need to take in the geospatial data and add that in as a factor, or help you even predict where things need to be built, how they can be affected, etc. And so it's good that geospatial data is going to be playing more of a role in construction.
Absolutely. Any more topics on the list? Oh, we got autonomous vehicles, which is an odd thing to add to the geospatial world, but how do you think that applies here?
Oh man, this is going to be hand in hand, and in fact, quite a few folks that I follow on Twitter that are geospatial related also are autonomous vehicle related as well. Because I mean, that just goes hand in hand. What does everybody use when they're driving around? Google Maps or Apple Maps. I'm sorry if you do, but you use one of those sources. And so the autonomous vehicles is just going to the next level of what other data needs to be added in there, not just, oh crap, I'm going to hit another car. There's so many, there's a gazillion different factors that have to be added into these smart driving cars to make them safer, to make them more efficient at the end of the day. Because I mean, and nobody can really argue this. Well, some people will, but it'll be safer at the end of the day, and more importantly, it'll be more efficient. So we don't have people cutting each other off, swerving in and out of lanes or whatever. You just have an even flow pace. Even if it's going slowish, it's still going faster than it would have been if everybody was driving individually. Trust me, you know what I mean. This is the way forward. And so they mention TomTom and Google, and then the car makers like Audi, woo-hoo, Daimler, Ford, BMW, as well as all working on this, working with geospatial lidar data, et cetera. So yeah, this is going to be a big one in the future, and I'm really excited for that one. I think most of the world's excited for it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, great, awesome. It's autonomous vehicles are definitely, hand in hand with machine learning and AI coming around the corner. It's been talked about the last couple years. It's not necessarily new, but we're still seeing this community grow and figure out what it really is and what it really means for businesses and consumers. They're still all trying to figure themselves out. So,
Yeah.
um, mapping. We got a couple more lists, things on the list here. Mapping as a service and smart
Yeah.
cities.
So mapping as a service, it's more of a on demand for imagery and geospatial data now, because currently and before, well, not so much currently, but prior, it's always been, you have to go to a major corporation to get, your back in the day, your digital globe and GeoEye, et cetera. And you had to go and you had to order imagery and you had to pay for X, Y, and Z or whatever. But now they're mentioning the likes of other services that are out there, Nearmap, Carmenta, and Harman, um, that are providing satellite imagery and maps of any location in the world as a service. So you can see it, the latest and greatest through a web interface online. As you got to pay your fees, of course, but you'll be able to use these as a service. So that's another trend that's moving along.
how is this a change in what's already been done with Google Maps has always been a service to businesses, so is things like Mapbox and etc. So what's the big
Yeah,
news here?
yeah. So the interesting part about those is, well, with Google Maps especially, you're not necessarily getting the latest and greatest shot of the area, right? They do updates when they get around to it, type thing, right? Where these other companies are trying to provide the latest and greatest on demand. They realize that there's a need there for people to see, and businesses to see what's the latest that's going on, or historical as well. Now, Google Earth and Maps, I'm not sure if it's in Maps, but I know in Earth, of course, you can go back through time and you can do trend analysis and study over the imagery that's been taken over time. But this is, hey, this is, hey, I need this now, and what's the latest of this area? Kind of going back to what Planet does too, by the way. But yeah,
Okay, no, sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. Just a lot more, speed and efficiency of getting the data to the consumer, basically, or the end customer, um, with how things are evolving with the cloud.
right.
So,
The next topic down is going to be smart cities, and this is going to go somewhat hand in hand with AI. I mean, with autonomous, well, with AI, but with autonomous vehicles as well. So smart cities, so you can see where congested places are at. You can see pollution, taking basic architecture and urban planning. So smart cities are without a doubt going to be one of the big trends that we see moving forward. But it needs to be at the same time to go in hand with the autonomous, right? Because you don't want your smart car to get you there and then you're a dummy
no, that
for
makes
going.
sense. I mean, this stuff has to evolve as other things evolve too. Technologies have to work together. It can't just be you have smart cars. You have to actually upgrade the infrastructure in the city as well to aid this technology alongside of
Yeah,
it.
to complement it, sure, without a doubt. Yeah, so we need a smart world.
And I think the last one of the Alice is drones. What more are we going to see here?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. You're the one been flying drones lately, but
So I guess the story is that Mason won a drone, like a DJI Spark drone, at the last GeoInt symposium from
thank
the
you, OG Systems. I
OG
appreciate
Systems from that, and we finally got a chance to try it out formally. Mason ended up just letting me have it, play a hand on it, and playing around. So this is it.
it. I've got a baby.
This is the Spark drone. And I was a little bit skeptical on how well this thing would do, and I should I'm not gonna pull up video right now, um, but but yeah, actually, this thing has some really unique capabilities in how compressed the technology is for as small as this drone is. It maybe only has about 10 minutes of battery life, but has an HD video camera on it. Can go up about legally, I can unless in this urban area, I can go up 400 feet. But it has a capability going up about 1,500 and going about was it about 2 miles out from the
Yeah, it's amazing.
sensor.
It really is amazing how
Yeah.
far. I remember I flew one of the initial when drones were coming out. This is almost 10 years ago, and it was that one that you got at, oh God, what was that? That's the oh, I'm trying to think, smarter things or whatever. But it was just a basic drone back then with a really low megapixel camera on it. But to me, it was mind blowing that that we had this on the commercial side. These days, my lord, even I remember I was talking to my 10-year-old nephew out in the Bay Area, and he flies his drone all the time, and all of his friends have them, etc. We're quite literally, because they're so affordable now and so plentiful, that of course everybody's flying them. Make sure you fly within FCC restrictions, kids. But I mean, or FAA restrictions. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that where we're going with drones.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and this, like I said, I'm just surprised how small what you can do with even the consumer drones. The DJI Spark is only about 400 or 500 bucks, and and as it was again HD camera technology, you can take snapshots from there. It actually streams the video to your phone, and you have the capability to stream the video live to Facebook, YouTube, or any other streaming service you want, as long as you're within range of the drone, which is pretty incredible. Uh,
it
yeah,
really is. And
and
then
it,
drones also helping folks out like farmers, et cetera, so they can see their
oh
land
yeah,
and see what.
yeah,
crops. There's
and
so many uses for drones.
and if that's as powerful for the consumer side, just like you were just stating, how powerful that's getting from the business end as well. Now with that said, I've learned this by acquiring this drone, learning where I can fly it, about the policies that exist that out there that restrict from the airspace perspective where you can go. But I learned, I had an interesting conversation a number of months back with, I believe it was retired General Poss. I actually called him up one day, just kind of getting some business advice from him, but he got into this giant UAV drone discussion about what he's involved with, and he started talking about how the policies are going to change to help innovation of these businesses wrapped around UAVs, to give them more freedoms to fly around this area. Obviously, you're going to have some tighter restrictions around airports. The restrictions are going to be there, but they're probably going to be a lot tighter, so that let all these UAVs maneuver around these things. Because if you actually look at airspace map, where airports are and how many of them actually exist, most people even know. They think of the major airports, but the smaller airports too claim the airspace around them. And if you said, okay, you're not allowed to fly within 10 miles of every airport around the area, well, in the dense area up and down the East Coast, that almost becomes nearly impossible. So they have to ease up the restrictions, and flying in between the airports below a certain altitude, don't get in the ways of the landing and takeoff. Uh, you know, a certain distance in front or behind the runways, etc. But now it's going to be a lot more crowded space. Air is not going to be as free as it
There
once
just needs to
was.
be a smart way to manage it. Once
Yeah,
again, you know what I mean? Whether it's built into the drone, et cetera, that
yeah.
if there's a sensor coming off the plane or something's happening, then that son of a bitch returns to base or whatever.
These
And
drones aren't fully controlled by people either. You can
well,
actually
because
just, yeah,
recently we had what was it? London Heathrow Airport shut down for 2 days because of the drone, right?
yeah.
That was crazy, man. And that's how many millions did that cost?
Yeah, I mean, so with that said, there are going to be incidents, but how we
Yeah.
manage it, and it's going to be a new world where these drones can do a lot, not just with deliveries, like in whether delivering your pizza or packages, but eventually these larger sets of drones a lot of folks are working on can even just be your next step of Uber. Even imagine this helicopter drone dropping out this little pod, you get in and it takes you somewhere and drops you off somewhere. That's something
I don't
people are.
know, Adam. I
Yeah,
don't
right.
know if I trust it, Adam. It's
So anyway, yeah, these are good trends to look out to. We're going to be able to see all these items, all these topics evolve over the next year. Which do you think we'll see the most maturity in 2019 from all these topics mentioned, Mason?
Ooh, let me think about it here. The miniaturization of sensors, my lord, the amount of money that's being put into that, and the heat is on the competition. That might. Oh, and well, just from yesterday too, AI and machine learning. Man, that's another one that's
I
really
think
pushing
those will
forward.
be ongoing and evolved, but from a more baked perspective, are we going to see that publicly on some good, leaps and bounds this year? Where are we going to be actually, publicly see the leaps and bounds with what's going on?
Might be the last one actually. Might be drones, to
Might
be
be
honest with
drones.
you.
Yeah, no, I think drones makes a lot of sense because it's already in the consumer spaces, and it's already on this kind of product life cycle that
Yeah.
that it can quickly innovate and get out there. And and it's actually used in businesses today. Aside from all the policy changes and airspace stuff I was talking about, a lot of folks are already using it for real estate, for farming, like you said, for
Hmm.
even insurance. I was reading this article. I think this is Geomini or something like that. There's this company out there. Um, in the AI spaces, they're looking at drones, using drones to quickly assess roof damages for storms or etc. Um,
Right.
for insurance companies. So it's already out there, and
And in huge numbers. That's the other thing
yeah,
too. So you have the people behind it to push it, right? There's the money and the amount of users, and they're looking for more and more and more something exciting, and more range, more capabilities, higher resolution sensors, etc. On it. Yeah, it could be drones without a doubt.
yeah. So with that said, I think that takes us. That was a nice run through of the trends. I got a couple more things to bring up because it's
Yeah, and
already
if you want to read more on that, just head
yeah.
over to geospatialworld.net, like we mentioned at the beginning, and you can read all about those trends.
And I'll make sure to put the link within the YouTube slide notes as well. And don't
Okay.
and I do eventually I will repost this on we're going to be starting our Facebook page feed too. So with the
Okay.
near death of Google Plus coming up soon, that's not going to be our main area. And begrudgingly we're moving over to Facebook, and I think we're going to be that's going to be our main page. Other than our main website, everything's going to still be on our main website, which we got to change, manage, and update periodically. But the
And
Facebook
our Twitter
page,
feed.
yeah, the Twitter feed too. Um, but the Project Geo is moving away from the collaboration that's been existing on Google Plus for a while.
Rest in peace, Google Plus. You
Yeah, I
did it
mean,
so
people
well.
had its gripes, but that was a home for us. So,
It was.
and it was good. So a couple more topics I have to bring up is so let's see, when did this happen? So last month sometime, I want to say it was the beginning of January. Sorry, I'm bringing this up real quick.
No, no, no problem.
I think it was around January 7th, or it was January 7th. So what happened on January 7th was the Worldview 4 satellite. So basically, if anybody's not familiar, that was GeoEye 2 rebranded in the Worldview 4. So GeoEye was acquired by Digital Globe back in the day, and right before they got acquired, um, they had a satellite cooking in the oven, basically, building a satellite. And when they got acquired, that was slated to be GeoEye 2. But when Digital Globe acquired them, when it came time to launch the satellite finally, when they finally made the decision to launch it, they rebranded it into Worldview 4. So what actually happened? What basically the control moment gyros on Worldview 4 failed. So the satellite has been up since November 2016. That's when it launched. And the gyros failed in Worldview 4. Gyros failed in, once again, January 7th. And
Now explain what the gyros do exactly.
I'm not the satellite operations type of guy. As far as I can tell, they keep the satellite stabilized at the position it's supposed to be at while it's moving, so it's rotating the Earth. So right now, it might be in some type of free spin as it's orbiting the Earth right now, so they can't keep it still while it's taking a picture. That's my best guess. I'd had to look it up, so I'm sure we can pull some experts around it eventually. But it's a huge loss. It's only been up for 2 years, and a lot of these satellites, for imagery satellites, will stay up there from 10, 15 years. If you think about Iconos and QuickBird, they're up there a long time, and and this is an estimated loss of Maxar, which owns Digital Globe, says Worldview 4 generated approximately $85 million of the company's 2018 revenue. So you can multiply that. So expected a total roughly $2 billion when the company's full year earnings is coming in. Okay, so
Satellites aren't cheap,
so
man. And
so
I
they
wonder.
say it's worth 155 million, but honestly, it's over a 10-year period. Let's say we guessing it was going to stay alive for another 10 years. It's a lot of money down the drain. So
It is. I would be interested to see if there's if somebody's done whether it's in college or just for funsies, if somebody's done a percentage stat of satellites that fail, whether it's to go into orbit or fail shortly after being deployed, etc. That'd be interesting to see what your percentages are. So
yeah,
it's almost like a gambling stake for investing.
and honestly, I can't remember the exact numbers from the resolution. I know it was supposed to. I think it was supposed to be able to shoot like a point 0.3 meter resolution, but they ended up moving it in a higher orbit, so it was only shooting like 0.4 meters or something. But it was still
Right.
really good quality, top-notch quality for a bird. So it's kind of sad to hear. Now, what ended up happening was
So it's not a total
Max.
loss.
Well, Maxar's stock tanked, or Digital Globe stock tanked when that happened. So,
As it should. Yeah.
yeah. Now it's going to be interesting to see what they come out with a couple of years. I think it's just a market scare because they're going to come out with newer technologies. And I think there's some rumors about them coming out with their own imagery small sat constellation around the corner as well. So,
Well, and that's part of investing is you got to do your research. You can't do the chicken little the sky is falling and just buy and sell on. Well, a lot of people do, but you got to know what the long game is, and well, it depends if you're playing it long or short too. But yeah, that's unfortunate that their stock dropped so much.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's sad news. I mean, just sad to see an imagery bird follow the sky. It's especially a really high quality one. So, the other thing I have to come up.
So for
Um,
folks watching, maybe you should hint hint go buy some stock.
all right, I don't know. That's just a suspicion of mine that it's just the market scare, but who knows? The impact of losses might impact the business a lot more than I think it would. So, um, Maxar is a huge business in Digital Globe, and Digital Globe has a lot more satellites under its wing. So,
Right.
uh, so with that said, moving on to a new topic about a couple. Well, this has been in the works for a while. We were bummed out when they announced they were going to do this, and what I'm talking about is the deprecation of Google Fusion tables. It's finally come around. A lot of us freelancers out there were hoping that Fusion tables would have some new life within Google Drive over the years. I believe Google Fusion tables started in 2009 and eventually became an additional plugin or capability within Google Drive on top of Google Sheets. But what is it? It's an easy way of managing geospatial data and visualizing it and aggregating it within the Google Drive environment. And it's been very useful, very friendly. It can handle large amounts of data. And there's a number of conversion tools I used along the side of it called Shape Escape, which can actually convert um, shape files into Fusion tables automatically too. It was a great little side plugin, but it helps me manage Fusion tables. And actually, all the data you put in Fusion tables, you can actually export as a KML or a live KML, and it has its own API you can work with as well. So it was very very useful. But they hadn't updated it and they hadn't maintained it for years. So the
Did
deprecation
they give a
date,
reason why? Was it just a lack of users, or did
I
they?
don't think it was necessarily a lack of users, but Google's been throwing themselves off the cliff with geospatial for a long time, and for a while, it's just I think it's a business decision. It's not that geospatial industry isn't a popular topic with or can be a is a it's a big industry. It's just not an industry they want to focus on. They want to be a service provider for big companies, big mapping services. I'm sorry, big companies who want to use mapping services, but not necessarily cater to a specific industry like geospatial analysts on the smaller scale. So now, with that said, they do say something like they give this things like, oh, if you keep on using Fusion tables, you can always move and use Google's BigQuery and Cloud SQS and Google Sheets and Data Studio alongside it. It's like, well, great. Now I got to be a developer to use a dumb, simple tool like like the capabilities that Fusion tables have. The best thing about Fusion tables was I, as an analyst, could use it without developer knowledge. Now I have to be a developer to have the same capabilities I was using before, and that's the big killer.
That's yeah. That just seems the reverse. Well, I mean, it's fine that they moved in that direction, but you still want to. You think that you'd still want to have legacy support for Fusion tables just for those folks out there that aren't code monkeys.
So what's the deprecation date? So the deprecation date is, according to a couple articles, it's Google Fusion Tables will shut down December 3rd, 2019. However, I've seen other articles that it could be shut down much, much, much earlier than that, as maybe even as early as March in a lot more quieter manner. So if you have data in Fusion Tables format, and actually I had a bunch that I was sharing out with a larger community. So what I'm going to be working on over the next hopefully month or two is slowly converting those Fusion tables out into Google Sheets and finding a more Google Sheets is good, but I want to find a better geospatial home for these things because a lot of you know, the bigger hit on me is having a repository to keep these geospatial files where it's not going to cost me a lot of money, especially things that I'm doing to do open source and share with the community as a whole. So
Yeah. So if anybody's watching out there and you have any ideas on that, let us know in the comments on YouTube or Twitter, etc. We'd
yeah,
appreciate it.
or if you have a tool out there that's a lot similar to this, and we can take advantage of it. It has to be just as user friendly or better. Seriously, I
And
mean,
by the way, folks, if you haven't noticed, that's two Google products that we've mentioned that are going away soon.
what was
Google Plus and
yeah,
Infusion Tables.
right. Fusion Tables is more of a hit to our community, though. That's definitely
Yeah, without a doubt.
okay. So, anything else we want to mention this episode?
No, but go. I said without a doubt, but then I kind of reflected on that. Google Plus, man. To be honest with you, it's the only place where I've met up with a great geo community. You know what I mean? It was like we had our own little band of brothers, so to speak, and I met so many cool people and contacts. And now there's a few of them that have moved over to Twitter, or I'm friends with them on Facebook, etc. But it kind of stinks because it was a great geo. One of my circles was just geo people and people that are in the business. And I know folks, you know, you want to use LinkedIn or whatever else. That was a great one because if you could just go to those circle or follow that circle and you could just see all the trending news from the actual people. So it's not the company pushing out their news about X, Y, and Z. It's the people and what they're working on and you know questions they might have. It was a great little community and so that's just us from the geo world that we met folks like that. And I'm sure in other industries, people had circles like that in the Google Plus community. Sucks it's going away, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, so I will quickly find this since you mentioned that. I'm going to put a shout out to the GeoGeeks community in Google Plus because there was a discussion that happened a number of maybe a couple months or weeks ago. See if I can find it. Okay, here it is. So what they're doing is I think there's a site called Pluspora. And I
Not
think,
familiar with.
yeah, Pluspora. I'll try to provide a link for it if I can confirm that's where the GeoGeeks community is formally moved to. I suggested they come out with like a Discord channel and do something like that. That would be kind of interesting. Um,
What's their names? Just bought Discord a couple days ago. Apple.
okay, so yeah, they do have a Discord. No, I set up a Discord channel for Project Geo, but I'll share
Yeah.
that out.
Just heads up, everybody. Apple bought Discord a couple days ago.
Apple bought Discord. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was breaking news to me too when I read it on Twitter. I was like,
Ah,
oh, son of a gun.
that's that could go either way.
Well, it's
So
just like Amazon bought Twitch. You know what I mean? These companies have deep pockets right now. A lot of these companies do, and they're buying up the quality good stuff that especially the younger folks are using. Right?
okay, so this is coming from. So Kristen Milton is, I think, one of the big runners of the GeoGeek community, and
Yeah, it's great.
Pluspora and MeWe are the big candidates. Um, like I said, I don't think I saw any feedback on what the community is, but I'll do some research, and maybe the next episode we'll talk about where the GeoGeeks community now is. Because last thing I want to do is have what we do completely separate than what they have somewhere else. I want to make sure that you guys know where to find everybody as a community and where we know how to talk to each other as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so and speaking of too, I mean, I'm not opposed to everybody getting over on Twitter at the same time. In fact, I recently refined my Twitter feed and got rid of a bunch of other things that I'm not interested in, et cetera, and got it down to mostly to geo folks, and then some of my favorites, of course, like Conan O'Brien and this, that, and the other. Because as I'm going through my feed, I need some laughs as well as some geo. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Twitter, to be honest with you. It'd be cool if people moved over there. But we'll do a follow up, like you said, and see where if there's a consensus where everybody's moving, or if the lights got turned on or off, so to speak, and all the cockroaches ran in a different direction. So
Yeah, no, we'll figure out where everybody is. So with that
yeah,
said, I don't got anything else. I think this is a good episode talking about a couple various topics,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll try to bring on some guest speakers and research some folks to come on the show again. I keep on saying this every time I've been there airing this the last year. You know, I know we see it's like, oh, we're starting this again, but no, seriously, we will. I can't tell you when we're going to air next. Hopefully in next week. Hopefully in another 2 weeks. But we're going to
We're
try and keep
scheduled
this
to do every
consistent.
Thursday.
Yeah,
We're
there we go.
scheduled to do every Thursday. Stop being condescending, Adam.
I'm not trying to be condescending, but I've been promising our viewers that we're going to come back and share the news again. That's what we're going to do. So, um, so with that said, it's been a good episode, and thank you for watching Project Geo. Once again, I'm Adam Simmons.
And I'm Mason Rothman. We'll see you next time.
Right there.